disgrace. And if it isn't a disgrace, which one of you media guys will say, hold on, Chris, I don't think it's a disgrace. Fight me. It's a disgrace. Yes, I said it, and you all need to say it. And you all need to actually make the boxing board of control do. My son having to boil himself down to 160. 3 years ago, they were talking about him coming down to 157. What is that? This is daylight murder. And when I say murder, you say, well, oh, Chris, that's a bit too strong. Yet, my brother died at the hands of the promoters. 20 losses in 27 fights. Being brought in as fodder. Do you understand? So I don't have any...
Chris Eubank Sr. is enraged by the upcoming fight between his son and Conor Benn, denouncing it as a complete disgrace to the sport. He's furious over the absurd weight cut Chris Eubank Jr. is being forced to endure, a dangerous drop to 160 pounds, something that borders on madness. Eubank Sr. makes it clear he's not just angry on behalf of his son, he's speaking from a place of deep, painful experience. Having lost his brother to the brutal realities of boxing, he knows exactly what's at stake. His brother was exploited by promoters, thrown into the ring as a punching bag, and ended up paying with his life. To Eubank Sr., this fight represents the same reckless disregard for a fighter's well-being in favor of generating hype. The sport has failed his family before, and now it's threatening his son's future.
The smaller guy in Conor Benn he has had his career destroyed for one guy. Because once you go up to 160, going down to fight them at 147, it doesn't work. These rules are in place to provide a rail for him for his career. My son coming down from 168 to 160 puts his life in danger because I know what it is. I know what it is to lose that type of weight.
Chris Eubank Sr. isn't holding back in his condemnation of the potential showdown between his son and Conor Benn. He's adamant this fight should never happen. Eubank Sr. sees the entire situation as a disaster waiting to unfold. For him, forcing Benn to climb up to 160 pounds isn't just ridiculous, it's a career killer. He points out that this drastic weight change doesn't make sense and sets both fighters up for failure. The worst part, the toll it's taking on his son, who's being pushed to drop from 168 to 160. Eubank Sr. speaks from painful experience, having witnessed the dangerous effects of extreme weight loss. This isn't a fight, it's a dangerous game with both men's careers and lives at stake. He believes that the risks far outweigh the reward, and this clash could end up doing more harm than good, both physically and mentally. This fight shouldn't happen no matter what. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments and like the video.
No, I can't be inconsistent. I can't be dishonest and a hypocrite. I've said from the outset that I didn't like the fight. I felt it was a fight built upon other people's legacies. I understand what it's turned into. I understand the furore and the interest, and I understand the point that Eddie Hearn's making. If you ask Frank Warren what he thinks of it, he doesn't think much of it. People might say that's because he's not involved in it. But I would like to see Conor Benn fighting at 147 and winning a world title in that weight class. And I'd like Eubank, who I think is a brilliant showman and a great raconteur, fighting for a world title at 160 or 168. Not this the situation, but each to their own. I don't know, where are you on?
Well, where are you on? It's going to be a must.
Simon Jordan doesn't hold back, blasting the Eubank versus Benn fight as nothing more than a blatant cash grab riding on two famous names. The reality is, this isn't about boxing, it's a spectacle built on nostalgia, not athleticism. Jordan exposes the truth. This so-called super fight is just a glorified exhibition, not a true contest. Benn should be aiming for real titles at 147, not jumping into catchweight bouts for the sake of hype. Eubank, too, has no business dropping below 160 just to fill pay-per-view numbers. Even Frank Warren sees the manipulation. This isn't sport, it's a show. The real question is, how long will fans buy into this? The fight may sell out arenas, but it's selling out the sport in the process. The moment of truth is approaching, and boxing deserves more than...
I have never in my entire life witnessed anyone work so hard as Conor Benn in training camp. And if Conor Benn loses, and I don't believe he will, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I've done absolutely everything I can to win this fight. And he will win this fight. And he will knock Chris Eubank out inside 4 rounds. That is my prediction.
Without a doubt, Eddie Hearn stands firmly behind Conor Benn, praising his unmatched dedication and drive. For Hearn, this isn't just about the fight, it's about Benn's relentless commitment to greatness. The question is, how far can Benn's determination take him? Hearn's answer is simple: Benn will knock out Chris Eubank Jr., and he's so confident that he stakes everything on it. Moreover, Hearn doesn't expect a late round finish. He predicts a brutal knockout within 4 rounds. On the other hand, the thought of Eubank Jr. having any chance against this unstoppable force seems laughable to Eddie. He doesn't sugarcoat it. Even if Benn loses, he'll know he gave everything to win. But make no mistake, Hearn is betting on a quick destruction, and it's going to happen fast.
The mismatch on paper, of course it is. It's a fella that won a British title at welterweight, who hasn't boxed for a long time, against a faded world-class middleweight. So I haven't really got any interest, to be honest.
Egg slap not get you excited for us?
Not really, no. I'm not really excitable.
But here's the catch. Dave Allen isn't holding back. He completely tears apart the Eubank versus Benn rematch, branding it an embarrassment to boxing. The reality is, this fight is nothing more than a shallow spectacle, a desperate attempt to cash in on nostalgia with no substance behind it. On the other hand, Allen slams it as a cheap circus act, highlighting the ridiculous mismatch between a faded middleweight and a welterweight struggling to secure victories domestically. Moreover, Allen doesn't mince words when he describes it as a sideshow with zero sporting merit. The so-called rivalry between these two? It's nothing but a joke. These fighters are living off their fathers' legacies, while fans are force-fed a diluted version of what should be a real fight. What's more, this isn't boxing, it's a disrespectful pantomime that's tarnishing the sport, all for a quick paycheck. The burning question is, how long will fans keep buying into this farce?
Just the walk, let alone the fight part, takes a lot of mental strength. It takes a lot of guts, a lot of heart. You know, mental strength. It's a huge thing in boxing.
It's a big thing in life, even outside of boxing, right? In business and in all, I think, great endeavors. Do you think it's something that you can, from what you've seen in the gym, something you can teach or train?
Frank Warren didn't hold back when discussing Chris Eubank Jr. He flat out called him a prick, offering a brutal critique of Eubank's character. Moreover, Warren didn't shy away from the confrontation, making it clear that he couldn't stand the way Eubank carries himself, especially in public. This wasn't a simple disagreement over boxing. It was a full-on clash of egos. As a result, Warren's explosive comment only served to intensify the already charged atmosphere surrounding the fight. Eubank's cocky, brash persona has made him a polarizing figure, but with Warren's public takedown, it's clear the tension has escalated. On the other hand, with such venom being thrown from both sides, the animosity between Eubank and Conor Benn has evolved from a professional rivalry to a deeply personal war. The stakes aren't just about boxing, it's about pride, reputation, and making sure the other doesn't have the final say.
I understand and get it. Now, I'm friends with Conor, I've known him a long time, just before he got into professional boxing. He's a lovely young man, he's a lovely kid. I'm not the greatest fan of Chris Eubank Jr, but I tell you what, I admire the control the boy has over things. I must admit, I mean, the boy's in such control when it comes to press conferences. He's playing it like he's the orchestra, and he's the guy at the front.
Tony Bellew dives straight into the fire, backing Conor Benn without hesitation, calling him a genuine, grounded warrior who's been solid from the start. Meanwhile, he makes no effort to hide his disdain for Chris Eubank Jr. the moment Eubank's name is mentioned. Bellew's tone shifts sharply from admiration to outright contempt. He criticizes how Eubank manipulates the media, acting like he's in complete control of the show. But here's the catch, Bellew doesn't see this as brilliance. To him, it's nothing more than arrogance dressed up as confidence. Moreover, his praise for Benn feels deeply personal, like he's standing by a brother in battle. The contrast between the two is brutal. Eubank may run the press, but in Bellew's eyes, Benn runs with honor. The lines aren't just drawn, they're burned into the canvas, and Bellew's loyalty is undeniable.
Conor's his dad's son, and his dad's exactly the same. And the Eubanks and the Benns, they know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And so there'll always be that family rivalry going on. And Chris's aloof personality, riles Conor, like his dad did, with their dads did. So he knows exactly what he's...
Moreover, Johnny Nelson doesn't hold back when it comes to Conor Benn, blasting him for crossing a dangerous line with his reckless comments and erratic behavior. Benn's constant controversies have overshadowed his potential, and Nelson can't overlook that. On the flip side, Nelson is full of praise for Chris Eubank Jr., lauding his unwavering focus and relentless commitment to his craft. Eubank Jr. remains determined, building his legacy without letting the distractions around him affect his trajectory. Meanwhile, Benn's off-the-ring antics keep stealing the headlines, leading fans and experts to question his true character. Nelson's stance is clear, Eubank Jr. is locked in and focused, while Benn is caught up in drama that seems to define his career. The burning question remains, can Ben finally tune out the chaos and focus on his performance, or will the distractions continue to derail his future when it matters most?
I think I think Chris is leaps and bounds ahead of Conor. His experience, the guys he's been in with, take away the weight, because Chris is obviously going to be disadvantaged in there with the weight as well. But just ability, boxing skill set is on a complete...
On the flip side, Harlem Eubank unleashes a fiery tirade, ripping apart the hype surrounding Conor Benn and making one thing absolutely clear: Chris Eubank Jr. isn't just better, he's operating on a completely different level. Fans may obsess over weight cuts and rehydration, but Harlem sees through all the noise. To him, this fight isn't about size or strength. It's about boxing IQ, experience, and mental toughness. Chris has fought world-class fighters, whereas Ben's resume is filled with highlight reel knockouts against second-tier opposition. Harlem believes Ben's power won't hold up when Chris starts dismantling him with precision and strategy. On the other hand, even if Chris sacrifices size, Harlem insists he has the edge where it truly matters: brain over brawn. The burning question is, when Ben is forced into deep waters, will he sink or swim? Harlem's betting that Chris will drown him round by round. This isn't power versus power. It's about survival in the ring. What's your take on this fight? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe our channel for more boxing updates.